one player that did bounce back after a really poor performance in the first final, who was held well by Oisin Mullen, was Hugh McCluggage. Yep. The tag didn't start there, Brownie. They started Atkins on him with Oisin starting on the bench, but he finally came on and went back to him. But McCluggage, well, he got off the chain, had 14 possessions at three-quarter time, but in the last quarter, he was the one that really set it alight and blew the margin out.
Absolutely, yeah. And certainly, no doubt his knee was hampered in that first final. Hampered him, sorry, but Mullen was unbelievable, did a great job. But, geez, he's bounced back hard in the last three finals, McCluggage. He was tagged by side bottom last week, and then on the weekend he was tagged by Mullen. So I went with him for about three quarters and gradually wore his way into the game again. But he was a lot more proactive.
He was on the move. He's on his toes, moving around.
Wasn't he?
Yeah.
That whole midfield group.
He was ready for it. Absolutely. And so were his teammates. They supported him. But McCluggage only had 5 touches in the first quarter, but he had 4 clearances and 4 tackles. Yeah. And the 4 tackles really stands out because, OK, if I'm not looking for easy ball today. I'm prepared to go and win my hard ball the way that it's going to happen, and I'm more prepared than I was 3 weeks earlier. And his teammates definitely helped, and the way they set up stoppage definitely helped McCluggage, work his way into the game, and his last quarter was exceptional.
Well, the way they set up certainly helped him, but they look like a bit of a gang mentality with Oisin Mullen from Brisbane. You say McCluggage learnt a lot. I reckon Chris Fagan and his coaching panel learned a lot as well, because they went after Mullen every chance they got to just lay on him. Here's a goal here that McCluggage kicks, and you look at the Brisbane players come in, no Geelong player. Not one player goes and supports Oisin Mullen here.
But McCluggage
doesn't. That's good.
Yeah, so I look at McCluggage walking away, so it's not his job. I think the Brisbane players, and I wouldn't be surprised if the coaching staff would have put it on the players. You've got to look after one of your teammates.
And then here, this is the next centre bounce. As soon as they got a chance to get him, they got him.
Yeah. It's like the old Lee used to circle a tagger quite often.
Do you think Fakes would have done that?
Wouldn't be surprised, because him and Lee are close, obviously. They speak a lot. And Lee was a master at that. The name would be on the board and he'd circle it and say, hey, every single one of you blokes is going to put some body on him every time you walk past him.
That's disappointing from Geelong, I reckon, though. They didn't support Mullen in that. There was a couple of instances like that. The backman, I've just forgotten his name.
Sullivan.
Sullivan had a moment late in the game. Now, I know the game is over, but just left on the island.
It's funny what you look for, isn't it?
Just left on the island.
Yeah. You don't know what nerves do. We don't know what anxiety, the performance anxiety, you don't know what the nerves of big games do. So, and clearly Brisbane handled it better than the majority of the Geelong players. So, they're really good. Brisbane's had a really proud record and a strong record of looking after their other midfielders and responding. And they've had their backside kicked a few times and they've responded in kind and really hard after that's happened. So the fact that happened 3 weeks ago, I thought that was actually a positive for the Lions midfield. I was pretty confident they'd bounce on that.
The two captains for the Brisbane Lions were fantastic, Harris Andrews and Lachie Neale. I know they caught your eye, Geordie.
Yeah, in particular, Lachie Neale, and we've spoken probably for the last 3 weeks to see what this matchup might have been. We did put the Blickstaff matchup on the table to see if that might have been something up his sleeve, because Shannon Neale, let's be honest, he's been mauled by Harris Andrews on the previous 2 occasions. So it was a surprise to me that matchup was the one that they were able to get. So you can see there, 11 intercept possessions. He was so strong in the contest. And you sort of go back and you look at the vision, and I don't think he's learnt anything from playing against. So right now, if you are sort of quasi a defensive forward on him, you need to close that gap between you and Harris Andrews, because when Dangerfield gets the ball, now you're too far away, but you've only got one option. You can't lead up because Harris Andrews has taken that space. And the kick is so long that it's not going to get there anyway, so you can't body him. Once again, body him up. Body him up. Don't let Harris Andrews run freely back into the leading space, but be close enough to be able to lead up or to get the ball out the back. He just didn't have the right positioning time and time again. Once again, go back, find the body, and then come back onto the ball. I just thought twice or 3 times he's played him and he hasn't learned anything. I know he's young, but I thought, once again, for me, that was the wrong matchup.
Did they miss it? Because we spoke about it in the qualifying final. You thought Mark Blitzarves would go to him. Now, Reece Stanley came out, and then Mark Blitzarves plays forward. Not predominantly, played in the ruck and forward in this game.
Yeah.
But very rarely was he matched up against Harris Andrews.
No, so he plays 48 minutes forward. I think 10 of those were sort of around Harris Andrews or on Harris Andrews. I just think I've seen that type of defender.
You've played that role.
You're like a McGovern or a Harris Andrews be manipulated by a really smart forward. Now, Reece Stanley ain't the option, I can tell you that right now. So Mark Blicavs could have been that. But once again, we'll be left wondering what that matchup would have done to them.
The only way you get that matchup is actually by having Shannon Neal out of the forward line more often than he normally would be. So maybe you give him a run in the ruck, and maybe he hasn't had that exposure. But sit him on the pine and allow Blicavs to lock in on Andrews, or Andrews to have to defend Blicavs for a period, and then bring Neal on when he doesn't expect it, not with a Blicavs-Neal interchange. But look, we're talking about margins. We're talking about margins that we think would have made a big difference. We're talking about the Lions side, who every single defender smashed their Geelong forward. So it wasn't just Shannon Neal, it was across the board. 7 out of 7 contests, direct matchups were lost by Geelong.
Were you disappointed not to see a change?
I thought Stanley might have been used if he was ineffective in the ruck. Just Billy Frampton style, be the guy that is the body next to Harris Andrews for a period. And then you'll use Blicavs in the ruck where he's been effective through the first couple of finals. But it's always easy in retrospect.
It made more difficult too that Cameron breaks his arm, and so he's obviously hampered. That makes it difficult. So they just didn't look comfortable ahead of the ball.
It was on repeat.
For
which is, I think
and the pressure was hot up the field. Remember too, the pressure's hot up the field, which helps.
Yeah.
But you can't watch some of that vision go.
No. My advice to Shannon Neal, go and speak to your midfielders and ask them what it's like.
What they want.
What they want. Yeah. What they need from you. Because they're tough kicks. We're running away, trying for a midfielder, under pressure. You boys have lived it. You got 3 or 4 guys chasing you, hot on your tail. You need a good lead, or whatever it is, a good positioning from the key forward ahead of you to make it an easier kick.
So let's tie a bow on the Cats. They have just had a bit of an off day. They were sensational for the whole season, but it was an off day from, look at the year results there. Yeah. They just had a shocker, and especially in the second half.
And they came up against a team who was red hot. And should we have been surprised? This is exactly the type of performance they put in the grand final last year, and they played their very best game in the last game in 2024. And it's arguable that they've done exactly the same. They've played their very best game in the last game of 2025. So if you've been able to do it once, there's a very high likelihood you can do it again. And if you've done it twice, there's a high likelihood you can do it a third time.
The worrying sign for Geelong is when you get beat by 40 points or more in a grand final, and there's been a few teams that it's happened to in recent time, is that you don't go on to win a final the following year.
You're writing them
14 teams since 1995, so it's happened to. So, yeah, that's right, they're going to have to buck history.
Won a final the following year.
Have not won a final.
Yeah.
Which is a worrying sign, I suppose, if you're to believe history, and Geelong heading into next year with an ageing list as well.
Well, they get Curnow. Who else are they getting?
Oh, we're going to get into John Redd very soon. But Dangerfield's not getting any younger. But
well, no, hey, you got to buck history clearly if you want to get back. I still think they're well placed.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Charlie Curnow. His name is going to be mentioned plenty over the next fortnight. And if you want to catch everything that's happening in the trades or in player movement, Trading Day is your place, and it returns October 6th, 5 p.m. Join all the journos as they look through all the deals through October.